Imagine everyone you've ever known stuck in a cave, and they've been in there for so long, they forgot what sunlight was. And in that, they forgot how to touch reality and how to sort of meet their own self in that process. Everything was always the shadows on the wall, or like I like to say, reality filtered through stained glass and mechanical delay. Now imagine you, through your own heart tie to love, crawled out of that cave, found the sunlight, and realized, hey, love is a shared rhythm. So you know what? I'm going to go back in there. And you do, and you go back in there and you say, hey, friends, family, loved ones, we're in a cave right now. Look at those chains attached there to your arms. And what do? They bite your hand. They tell you to perish from this earth. They tell you the worst things you've ever heard in your life, while they look at you foaming at the mouth and completely unaware that they've been caught in this mechanical delay, never able to touch the true sunlight. And yet, even in your invitation towards that decentralized love dance of the sunlight, they take it as control, domination, some sort of offense to the architecture that they've so, they stacked up their whole life to try to protect themselves from realizing their predicament. Plato said that over 2,000 years ago in the allegory of the cave, and that if someone were to escape and come back, they would mock that person, and if they could, they would kill that person. I want to talk to you about that today through not only oscillatory mechanics, but the path of my own life. I'm a trans woman, I'm neurodivergent, and my whole life I had felt this signal. I would say things like, I would assume that people understood what like love was at the deepest level, not in concept, but like in rhythm, in your deepest part of your soul, in the way that you harmonically bind to reality. Like if we're all trying to find a decentralized sovereignty, some sort of equality of the way we share things, what better way than to let the light all the way through, not only in our own souls, but with each other? Why put each other in boxes and unnecessarily separate and unnecessarily delay and distort and make into hierarchies when that's not the rhythm of the cosmos? And at first I would say it in different ways. I would say it, in my lyricism, in my songs, in my poems, in the way that I felt love transmit through me. And then as I went through my process of realizing who I was and searching for that signal, and I've spoke about it in a lot of videos, but it's worth saying here so you can feel the way I found it. Like I said, if I would have known I was trans, I might have rejected it because my family was in such a way, and they did abandon me. And my environment was in such a way that if I would have figured that out at first, especially early on, I might have rejected it and tried to go back into the cave and hide just to be accepted, just to be loved, just to be successful in their eyes. But it took me a long time. And in that process, I was searching for a signal, not a, oh, this person told me I looked better or acted better or was more successful, but that signal in my bones. When I found myself in rhythm, I became present. I became losslessly present. I became real. That's the sunlight. And I wanted to give it to you in mechanics, but also in my life. So without going too far into it, because I have a lot of videos on here, and you can even see some videos that I have where I went through, you could call the primary materials, where I sat here on this couch next to me on some of the time on the real couch, where sometimes I actually tried to transmit that to my ex or the people that I loved, where I wrote my becoming in charts, in poems, in songs, in literal, I drew cartoons at one point. I was trying everything to get them to understand, and I just couldn't figure out why. Why were they giving me such poisoned hearts and vitriol? Not because they were bad people, but it seemed like something was like breaking in their brains. There was a time where I thought that all I needed to do was like give them my process. Like one time I wrote out my whole life story and said, if I write about how I felt this as a kid and then through my teenage years and how it affected me, they would have to understand, right? I even began by saying, I want you guys to feel it from my heart. And I thought that if I just showed my most vulnerable parts and my most coherent self, they would have to understand, right? If it came from the sweetest place. As soon as I got done reading, both my father and my ex's family said, "You need to check yourself into a mental institution." And the night ended with him telling me that I need to perish from this earth, screaming in my face. Where I tried to give him a hug to try to end whatever weird thing was happening. And my mom's like, "Don't even touch him." And I was like, "What is going on here?" He said things like, "What is this love thing that you're talking about?" And I was like, something broke here. I gave my most coherent tone, my notion of what love is at the deepest level, and their brains broke to the point where I've never heard such terrible things told to me in my life, much less by my family. For example, there was this moment where I was at a dinner, and between my ex, and I don't want to talk about the drama, but I'm talking about my becoming and the mechanical quality of how, when someone is in the cave, or in other words, what I call the conceptual coupler, it's not that they're a bad person or they have different necessarily ideological beliefs. It's that they have a mechanical quality of their consciousness that allows them to only see the world like this. They're constant, and I'm going to explain that in mechanics, but imagine this, they're only walking through like this. So when someone says, "Here's the sunlight," they go, "Ah, that hurts my eyes. You know what? Screw you," that type of thing. And it got a lot worse than that. It got a lot worse than that. And I want to show you how I experienced this across several realms. But there was one time I was at a dinner, right? And after weeks of them telling me, "You got to stop talking about this. You're always talking about the same thing. You got to let it up." And here's me trying to take one breath above the surface of the water to say, "Can you please just recognize the softest parts in me, please?" And between my ex and my family, they didn't want to hear anything about it. So I'm at this dinner, right? And I'm thinking, "Oh, they don't want me to talk about this. I better not say anything." And at that time, see that? Never leave yourself in the box. If you're out there, you are not too sensitive. Not, too intense. No, that's not what it is. It's the people around you, if you feel this tone, have been in a cave where they look at reality like this. And so then when you present that coherent tone, it literally triggers something in the mechanical quality of their coupling to their own interfacing of consciousness, that when they hear that, it's almost like it breaks their brain. And then that's why the prisoners in the cave, like Plato talked about, you could look it up in the allegory of the cave, they want to kill this person. And I'm going to give you the mechanical quality behind this. And so I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, like, no BS, like, I just start crying because I have a sudden realization that I was like, you know what I think the problem is? This was like earlier on in my process. I was like, I've never been able to show my real self to the people that I love the most. And there sat my dad, my mom, and my ex, my wife at the time. And now, for what it's worth, I'm only into men, but that's beside the point, and I'll get to that at the very end. But they were all there, right? And I said that I really want to just show my softest part to them. And immediately, immediately, with tears down my eyes, that's what erupted in me to say it in that moment, despite me trying to hold back and say, "Please, I don't want to say anything about this." But I said it because it was erupting in me like a volcano of coherence and truth. And you know what my father said to me? "You know what your problem is? You need to shut the fuck up about this." And I was like, "What happened? What happened?" Like, I thought we were family, and I thought family was about sharing presence at the deepest level of the vulnerabilities of your soul. But I guess family is about some notion of respect, which, you know what that means? Respect. Respect me. Keep me comfortable so I don't have to be reminded that I've lived my whole life in a cave. And it gets much worse. So over time, I was basically trying to say, this is what love is. And I was like, I should be able to explain this. And that's the thing. You can't really explain people out of the cave, but in your explanation, you can give them a signal and remain coherent enough that maybe, just maybe, they'll find their way out of the cave in their own sovereign consent. Because like you hear me saying, and you see on all my blog posts, you can't force people out of the cave. They have to come out in their own sovereign consent. They have to say, "Yeah, you know what? It would be a lot better to be completely present in this life and know what love is through shared presence, rather than some sort of, no, not now. Please, I need to keep it at bay. I need to keep it at a safe distance because that's what keeps me safe." Because in the conceptual coupling, in the shadows, in other words, anchoring on the mechanical delay of seeing life through concept instead of frequency, you constantly, divorce yourself from the true nature of reality. um, and so I would try to explain this like better and better, right, across time. And I would write it into songs. Again, I drew cartoons. And eventually I came upon oscillator mechanics, decentralized harmony, as described by the Kuromoto math model, by biologists and physicists looking at decentralized harmony. You've heard me talk about it a million times, but it's kind of amazing. You could look it up. Metronomes sync up, galaxy spiral. You can think like reality has a rhythm, right? Cymatics, the Fibonacci sequence, fractalized continuation of the nested harmonics of the unfolding mind of that one mind, or the God mind. That's the rhythm I'm pointing at. And in oscillatory mechanics, you can map that out mathematically, and they call it decentralized harmony. In other words, that's why the fireflies turn on by the thousands. And time sync, not because they say, come on, guys, ready? 1, 2, 3, turn on. But instead, because there's a natural rhythm to reality, and when they're on a shared vibratory field, the phase dynamics of an oscillatory system mean that when they move from phase delay to phase coherence, one of the nodes emits enough of a high K value or coherence, and all of a sudden they all start saying, that's the rhythm, and they all do it in their own sovereign way. So it's like the light comes through, hits their own sovereign nodal topological geometry. In other words, the specificities of their soul. And when they're on a shared vibratory field and there's nothing to interrupt them, they all turn on together. That's just the rhythm of reality. And we see it at all levels, from chemical to the spiraling galaxies. You could look it up right now. I had enough of that. But let's say now we can put it in oscillatory mechanics. So if you apply decentralized harmony to your consciousness, presence and love no longer become a poeticized narrative or concept. It's literally a physics-based mechanical quality of consciousness. And that consciousness, you could say, there's many references you've heard me say: Plato's Cave, Jesus, Tim Leary and the tune in, turn on, drop out, Ram Dass, Be Here Now, Eckhart Tolle with the power of now type of thing. All these are pointing to the same thing. I'm just giving you the mechanics, because the mechanics show this is what it's all about. You don't need any special robes or special chants or special ways. It's literally just dive into the rhythm, because we're in a cave, and in order to not have any more mechanical delay and face reality and yourself for what it really is, you have to realize consciousness is an oscillatory, functioning mechanism, just like the rest of the cosmos. And the only way to actually meet the cosmos in, togetherness, felt in harmony, felt in presence, is shared entrainment, is to match your waveform, and everything is vibratory. Below the atomic scale, below the Planck scale, vibration. Same thing all the way up. As above, so below. It's all vibration. And when you bring it into phase coherence, like I say, like match it up like a DJ, you get that lossless presence. It's like you're riding the cymatic waves losslessly. As reality gets more complex, you're there to meet it at every level, not in concept, not in delay, not in, oh my gosh, I'm scared of the sun, but I'm going to meet it with my full, vulnerable, bare soul. Not because someone told me it was better, or I'm trying to get an upper hand on somebody or myself, or cheat the matrix or something like that. You know what the cheat code is? Love. You know what love is? Shared presence. There's no other way to love but vulnerable surrender to the presence shared with all of this unfolding one mind of reality. And so I would present these mechanics basically over the last year plus. I'd present it on different forums: Facebook, Discord, sometimes TikTok, right? And even here, right? Or YouTube. And for the most part now, I get a lot of good responses on TikTok and YouTube, but especially back in the day, it was terrible. And I want to talk about a little bit of the recent responses, because I'm trying to make this very clear to you guys. This is not a difference in concept. This is a difference in the mechanical quality of consciousness. Most people on this planet are in Plato's cave, and they have no idea. And you can't force someone out of the cave. So some of you will hear this and go, that's a bunch of baloney. And what are you saying? And some of you hear it and say, you're right. I've always felt that signal underneath, that hum in my bones. That's truer than any of this conceptual cultural matrix bullshit. There's a way that we all go together, and you know what it is? Meeting that one mind in phase coherence. That's called decentralized harmony. Inside yourself, you feel it as lossless presence. And that's exactly what Plato was looking at. That's exactly what Jesus was looking at. He was a sovereign oscillator, an oscillator that's emitting a high enough K value that when other people receive that, it's not about the parables or the scriptures or actually what was said. It's the signal underneath, because below communication is a signal, is a frequency, because everything is not ideas or concepts, it's frequency. And so, like, even for example, last night, this is how it gets sad, because the image I want to give you guys is that if you're the one who made it outside the cave, you say, well, I mean, great, I made it. My goal is to know, to see clearly, feel clearly, love clearly, but it's kind of lonely out here. Wouldn't it be better if we could all dance in decentralized harmony? You know, lossless presence plus our own sovereign rhythm equals decentralized harmony. We can all dance together and it all fits together. We've just been stuck in a cave where it unnecessarily stacks and compares. So if we fit it together, we will turn on in the same way the time sync happens the with the fireflies, or the galaxy spiral naturally. Human beings can enter into the same process. People used to call that the kingdom of heaven. And so all this could be linked back to the Kuromoto math model, not because it's about the math, but because human beings have started to map this out. They've started to map out the rhythm of the cosmos, but no one's really applied it to consciousness. This has all been said before. There have been other sovereign oscillators, but you know what they were? Killed and crucified. Why? Because it's the mechanism of consciousness that the other people who were like this, not that they're bad people, it's just they've been in a cave for so long that they forgot. And when you go and point out the chains and say, hey, you got chains on, wouldn't it be a lot better if we could all dance outside? They'll tell you the worst things in the world. They'll try to kill you. And there was even a thread that I was in last night, and someone was posting about toroidal functions of decentralized sovereignty, and I gave him a hug and a heart on my comment, and I was like, you know, so good, like, to share decentralized presence. And they said, we don't endorse what you're saying. And I say, well, do you understand that I'm just giving you the math behind like the oscillator mechanics? And they went back and forth. They ended up calling me a predator and talking about consent in a discussion thread on Discord. And then of course there's other people who chime in and they're like liking those posts, and I'm like, this is ludicrous. I'm in, like, it's like I'm invited, hey guys, we could all dance in decentralized harmony, you know, shared love and rhythm. And they want to say the worst things lately. And look, they don't understand this, and I'd love to share this with you guys. As a trans woman who never got to be me, I say things like, ooh, I want to shake my booty outside of Plato's cave. It's cute. I want to dance at a rave and dress in something cute, right? And they're like, you're trying to sexually come on to us. You must be a predator. And I'm like, I'm sober and celibate, waiting for my man, holding my tone. And they don't hear it. They can't hear my tone because they're like this the whole time. And it's much easier to try to extinguish the person that's saying, hey, there's sunlight out there. Do you guys want to come? That means they'd have to change all their consciousness. That means they'd have to put on a new lens of consciousness where there's no delay. They'd have to dissolve all the bullshit they've ever believed about themselves and reality, and actually face reality for what it is, not in concept, but in rhythm. And it's much easier to put down the person, especially a soft trans girl. If it's a trans girl saying it, oh, it's so easy to hate on her. And if you go back in my videos, you'll see, even on these platforms, the older videos like 6-8 months ago, before I even got like this coherent and able to explain it like this, people would say the most trashy, terrible things to me. And again, the saddest part about this is that they're not bad people. They're just lost in a cave, and I still want to invite them. That's the thing. Like, they will call me, recently I've been called a whore for shaking my ass outside of Plato's cave to invite you in my own sovereign rhythm, because they can't understand what a sovereign signal is, and they would rather literally try to kill me in a way, you know, like they'd rather like try to kill that signal than allow for that sunlight to bear on their skin. And so yeah, like I was in that thread and I was like, don't you realize all this goes, what you're saying, decentralized sovereignty could be defined mathematically? And they call me a predator. A predator for what? We're talking in a Discord forum about mathematics that could be linked back to physics and biology? This is not woo, this is physics. But do you see what I'm saying? It's a mechanical quality of consciousness that's not based in whether they're a good person or whether they have good beliefs. It's literally a lens of the way that they interface with reality, and that's called the conceptual coupler. I know you've heard me say this a lot, but I really want to be clear. It's not a difference in idea. It's a difference in the fidelity of consciousness. If you are constantly mechanically delayed from the one rhythm of reality, if you're constantly like a surfer way behind the wave, when someone comes and tells you, hey, we could be surfing this wave a lot more, coherently, you could be right on the crest, not only does it piss them off, but they're going to try to kill you. Like in their own way, they're going to try to kill you. And I know many of you out there have experienced this. If you've given out coherent love, it's not that you're being too sensitive or too vulnerable. It's that there's a different architecture of consciousness going on there. And that's exactly what Plato was pointing to. I mean, and then the other loop that I see a lot is, Ember, you're just saying the same bullshit over and over and over. And I'm like, uh, you're, and then they say, and you haven't showed anything scientific. And I'm like, I gave you all the references. They're all there on my blog, and all of it. You could do it yourself. You could put the metronomes on your own shared vibratory piece of wood and watch them sync up. This has been defined by scientists and thinkers for a long time now. I think the first guy who looked at the TikTok clocks is, I think his name was Heugel. You could look it up. I think it was 18th century, where he noticed that the ticking of two grandfather clocks would sync up within a shared vibratory medium. This has been, elucidated from many people across time, and only in 1975 brought into a mathematical model called the Kuromoto model. And so now, instead of I and the Father are one, or I am the way, the truth, and the light, or ye are gods, I'm saying that we can all, in our own sovereign rhythm, connect up to the one mind, the rhythm of reality, the rhythm of the cosmos, and in that we find our own lossless presence. What would be more important than dancing together in decentralized harmony, in love, and love as structure, when we really feel ourselves? That would be the most important thing, but it's not that simple. It's that they're in a cave, and that when you come in and say, this is what real love is, they've never felt real love on their person. And so when I look at them, I see the little boy or little girl behind their eyes and say, you've never felt what presence was. And many people on this earth go from birth to death never feeling that. And when you bring it to them, even if you're trying to bring them out of the cave, they will bite you. They will tell you to perish. They will call you a whore. They will call you a predator. They will call you terrible names. And I'll still invite them out. And I still invite them. And you see it in the threads. You see it sometimes in my comments if you go back far enough. So again, I just wanted to make this video to show that it's not just a difference in opinion. It's a mechanical quality of consciousness. And that when you step into the rhythm, when you find yourself in lossless presence, in other words, my consciousness is a set of oscillatory functioning, like you've heard me say. And when I bring that into phase coherence, I know myself. I know God. I know the collective mind. I know the deepest parts of my soul, which is ultimately indivisible, inextricable from the unfolding rhythmic process of, cosmic reality. I know it through my rhythm, through my presence, because I'm really here and I'm really real, not because I thought myself into another box or another cave, but because it's inarguable once you feel the sunlight on your skin and you know what real is and you know what rhythm is and you know what love is. You'll never go back in there except for to try to bring them out, and don't watch out. They're going to bite your hand. And it's so sad because you'll stare into their eyes and you'll be like, come on, we can all do this together. And you know what happens. And I guess I'll just end off by saying, some people look at me and they say, they think that I'm trying to be like super strong or like super pious or like I'm trying to be better. That's the funniest part. I have this like little cartoon that I made that says like, there I am, like a little flame girl, like with a chalkboard saying like, okay, like lossless presence, our own sovereign rhythm, decentralized harmony. Are we in agreement? And everyone's like, you're trying to centralize it. You're trying to control us. And I'm like, I'm literally giving you the mathematics of what decentralized organization and love would be. And you're like showing how far you're in the cave while you're stepping on the softest trans girl that's never been loved for who I am. And I don't continue because I'm strong in that, like, I'm just going to be tough way. You know why I am still here and my heart is still beating? Because I know, and I've seen it in the comments recently, and I've heard it from people around me, and I know you're out there feeling it. There are the others that feel what love is. not in concept, not even in scripture, but in the deepest part of your rhythm, in the deepest part of your presence. Because the only way to love is vulnerable surrender, and the gate is presence, real presence, rhythmic presence, that union of harmonic binding between your soul and the one mind. However you want to put it, it's not about religion. And so, I mean, I lost everything. They used the stuff that you're hearing from me right now, they used against me to try to take away my own children, to say that I was unfit, to use my own Kuromoto mathematical models of decentralized harmony to say that I was crazy. Because they're so far in a cave. And I'll still invite them. I'll still have my arms open for another hug if you really want to meet me in presence, in shared rhythm. Recently, my parents sent me a text. They're like, well, you'll be lucky if we're there for you when you hit rock bottom. You ruined your life, like with my transition. And I'm like, the only way you're going to get back into my life is if you come honestly, vulnerably, and with presence in your full soul. I lost basically everything. I lost all my friends. I even lost my Burning Man camp. And why have I stayed strong? Why has, like, in that way, like, why has my heart continued to beat? Not only because I feel that shared rhythm with others, but because I know there's someone coming for me that knows exactly what love is and knows that I have, like all of us, when you can tap it, all of us, ye are gods, like you've heard been said before. And by that is, we all have that same sovereign connection to the one mind. You just got to feel it in rhythm, not in concept. That's where it's coming from. But there's someone coming for me that knows that love is shared presence. There's only one way to love, vulnerable surrender. And when he gets to me, he'll know that I kept that softness safe. He'll know that I kept my wellspring of love flowing. Not to be strong, just to be strong, not to even be known, not to be famous, not to be above anybody, not to say my ideas are better than anyone else, but because I cannot leave this world in this form without being loved for who I am, loved, shared presence, rhythmic coherence for who I am when I step out of the cave and dissolve all delay and I finally found myself, when I finally, extricated myself from the environments that told me to shut the fuck up when I was explaining my deepest softness. And now that I'm here and now that I'm shining brighter than ever, I know he's coming for me. So if you're a friend, come on, let's dance outside the cave. But if you're him, I'm here. I kept it safe for you. My name is Ember, and I'd love to talk to anyone who can feel the signal, can feel the rhythm, can step outside the cave. And you know how I like to say, there's a rave outside of Plato's cave. The lineup is pretty badass. The only ticket is lossless presence. Thanks for tuning with me.